Welcome back for episode 2 of Summit S33ker with your boy Chris. Done with the cliffhanger. We were back to explain what exactly happened in surgery. So, it was a lot more complex than we all thought. And I mentioned that as we kind of ended the last episode. So, what that means is before I went into surgery, they told me it was going to be a 5-hour operation. All they had to go in and do was take the saphenous vein that I mentioned before and use it to create a bypass graft so I could restore blood flow to my foot. That was the plan. However, we knew that there was a dislocated knee and there were some rumblings about other potential things that were going on, but nobody knew until we actually got on the surgeon table. So what actually ended up happening was I go down to the operating room to pretty much get prepped for the entire surgery. And then all of a sudden, the orthopedic doctor comes over and he's like, hey, we need to actually get you an external fixator as well, because we need to make sure that your knee doesn't slip in the next 3-4 weeks and disrupt the bypass, because then we'll be back to square one, but even worse, because you could potentially end up losing the leg anyway. So they came down. I'm already drugged up, pretty much getting ready to go. So I signed the consent form and make sure everything was good. And they also come along and say, we need plastic surgery to come in here as well to do what's called a nerve exploration, because there was some worry about some nerve damage with my peroneal nerve, which is actually what's responsible for motor function in your foot. I'll be releasing some videos around what that actually looks like this weekend, and you can kind of see exactly what I'm talking about. But then I had to sign another consent form for plastic surgery to come in and actually do their job as well. So it went from a 5-hour surgery to a 10-hour surgery. So against 4 surgeons, 10 hours, the surgery ended up being a success on paper. So I wake up 10 hours later, back in my hospital bed. My parents are there, and they're the first people I see as soon as I open up my eyes. And as soon as I open my eyes, excruciating pain. I am sweating. I am just all disheveled. I don't know what's going on. And I just remember my mom telling me the first thing I said to both my parents is, what the hell did they do to me in there? So granted, to be fair, they had explained to me what an external fixator is in the pre-operation room. I had never seen one. I had never heard of one. However, when you wake up with one, things get real. So the sheet that I have on my body it looks kind of weird because there's poking situations kind of just poking out of the sheets like below my knee. And I look at it and I'm like, why is it all bloody, first of all? So I take the sheet off and there's the external fixator. So I will show you all what that looks like in the shorts, and you might be a little concerned about how this all looks and feels, and rightfully so. This thing hurts. And that is the first thing I'm thinking about. I'm like, why is this thing in my leg? And I think about I'm trying to just really gather myself. My surgeon comes in with my parents. Surgery was a success. The first bypass actually didn't take. However, we were able to just sew the second one up, restore the blood flow, so we're all good. The bad news that I would come to find out was I lost a lot of blood in surgery. And it wasn't an amount of blood to where, it's a natural operation. It was a life-threatening amount of blood. So before you go into surgery, they all take all your vitals. They take your blood to see what your levels are at. I got the chart back after my surgical procedure report was done, and pretty much all of my blood levels, so everything having to do with blood oxygen, hemoglobin, iron, everything was red. Before I went into surgery, it was black, sort of like stocks, red and black. So I was at a deficit for a lot of things because I lost a lot of blood. So from my understanding, that is where it went from a limb salvaging to a life-saving situation, which is what they meant by it was a lot more complicated when they got in there. So rewind back to the post-surgery room with my parents. The doctors are there, my parents are there, friends and family are down in the waiting room. But in the room right now, pretty much just my parents and the necessary medical personnel. And for some reason, I'm just sweating. I cannot understand. So I asked the nurse, why am I sweating so much? And she proceeds to tell me, well, that's the fentanyl that you're sweating out right now. There's a lot of drugs that we had to put you under in addition to your anesthesia, because it would have been entirely too painful and we didn't want to take any chances on you waking up. So I don't know how I felt about that because I understand that you have to do what you have to do. But here I am sitting at 33 years old with the most dangerous drug, at least on the market, from the opioid crisis and the war on drugs per se, in my system, and I'm sweating it out like a fever. So the next couple of days, honestly, I'm in and out. I'm so sleepy, I'm tired, I can't stay awake. My body's just in full recovery mode. But immediately after surgery, pain everywhere in the leg. You are essentially just bound to the bed. The day after surgery, I believe we tried to take an attempt at PT a little bit too quickly and trying to get me to stand. It actually resulted in me just not being able to do it, quite honestly. And I mean, it was a little bit too soon, but we got to try these things just to see what's possible. So I just want to shout out the medical staff at Kaiser. They were nothing but fantastic. I know Kaiser kind of gets a bad rap, but in my particular situation, the nurses, the doctors, top tier across the board. The only thing I did not like about the entire experience post-surgery was the fact that you don't get that much sleep because you're monitored around the clock. There's so many drugs that you have to take, so many painkillers, so many vitals that they have to come in and take, and they just don't stop, quite honestly. So every day every 2 or 3 hours, they have to come in and take your vitals. So again, throughout the night, same thing. Every 8 hours, I have to take what's called heparin for preventing blood clots. And that's actually one of the more important things that I'm still taking even to this point out, right? So every 8 hours, it doesn't matter again what time. It could be 3:12 in the morning. They coming in because you need your heparin to prevent blood clots because of the type of surgery. Everything else from Norco, which is another painkiller, the whole gambit that you can imagine for everything that you would need for this type of surgery. So the most uncomfortable part about it all is just not being able to get your rest, because you need your rest to recover. Your body's going through a lot. And especially with the amount of blood that I lost, I need to be sleeping to hopefully replace that. And be drinking a lot of water. They put a catheter in. Sorry if that's too much information. Extremely painful when they take it out. Dripped up to IVs, all of that stuff. So pretty much everything that you can think of from a post-surgical stance, I was going through. So if you look at some of those early pictures that I've shared on social media, you see the leg is bandaged, you see it's bloody, you see IVs, drips, everything you can imagine. But again, the most tiresome part, ironically, was just not being able to get enough rest. So waking up 2 o'clock every morning, 4 o'clock every morning, like clockwork. They got to come in, they got to do what they got to do just to make sure they get you to a point that's stable. And in that point, after that first kind of critical phase is done, then they end up downgrading you, which is actually taking you from a higher floor down to a lower floor. So in surgical terms, that's good, because the higher you are, the more serious your condition. So they took me down to another floor where it's not around the clock vitals, which was so nice, because instead of me sleeping 90-minute blocks, now I was getting 2.5, 3 hours, which doesn't sound like much, but honestly, when your body's going through that much trauma, you want every single ounce of sleep that you can get. So for anybody out there that has gone through surgery, you know exactly what I'm talking about. For those of you out there who've never had a traumatic surgery, fingers crossed you never do, because that is something that I, again, wish on nobody this entire experience. But if you do find yourself in this position, just know you got to stick with it. I want to give a huge shout out to all the nurses, again, around the clock. Please treat them with respect. They are doing nothing but their jobs. And if you treat them with respect, it'll end up being so much better for you, your mental, your recovery. Everybody's in such a better space when they're being treated correctly. So a little, life nugget just off for the side, whether you're in a hospital or out in the world. Treat people with respect. At the end of the day, we're all just trying to get better. We're all just trying to do our job. We're trying to put food on the table, get home to our families. So just my little soapbox moment. But The hospital schedule from that point on, honestly, you're just bedridden the entire time. I can't really stand up. I'm just in bed kind of tossing and turning. Again, they're coming in, they're drawing blood because we got to get those numbers in check. And honestly, a lot of that has to do with just taking supplements around the clock. But the main thing that kind of helps you really get your blood moving and your body healing is movement. However, if you're restricted to the bed, obviously you're not going to have that much movement. So my body's honestly just losing muscle. I'm having extreme muscle atrophy, and it's bad. I'm looking skinny. I'm feeling tired. And for all of my friends out there that are trying to visit or have been trying to visit, I'm sorry, but honestly, I could not do anybody more than my immediate 4 people in my circle. I just did not have the energy. So when you're seeing this, I apologize. I honestly did not want you all to show up, and I'm falling asleep on you. So my parents, my girl, my best friends, I can fall asleep on y'all and I won't care. But everybody else, I feel so disrespectful if you taking time out of your day. So for everybody who's been trying to come visit, trying to do all these different things, it's not because I don't want to. It's just I was not in a mental space where I could feel as though I was ready to have conversations, relive the injury, and talk more about things that would, I don't know, cause me further depression, that would put me backwards. So for, again, trying to move forward, that has nothing to do with y'all. It was all about me. I just didn't have the energy to entertain, but that will not let me stop from saying I appreciate that, and I am putting something together for when I do get out of this entire process out into the real world, that we can all get together. Y'all know me. I love bringing people together. I love having good energy around. I love connecting people. So when I'm able to, that will continue, because that's something that really brings me joy. And I just want to tell everybody out there, thank you for the messages, the texts. Throughout this entire vlog, y'all gonna be tired of me, but I'm not gonna stop saying thank you, because even to this point today, I wouldn't be here. A simple text message, a simple phone calls, voicemails. Some of my friends are comedians, cracking jokes, that type of stuff is honestly helping me. And it's been showing in my recovery that I'm feeling better and I'm in a better space mentally, and my body's starting to follow along. My wounds are starting to close a lot faster. My muscles are getting stronger. I'm restoring the strength that I had lost due to the surgery. But the most important thing from the first 2 episodes of this vlog that I really want to talk about are twofold, essentially. It is appreciating people and what they're trying to do, as I mentioned with the nurses, as I mentioned with my family, everybody reaching out. The second thing is mental health, because it was something that I thought I had honestly experienced. And this is something where I want to be completely open and transparent. Everybody out there that knows me, and for the people that don't, I'm extremely energetic, always got a smile on my face. You can't tell me that the world's ending or any of that type of stuff. I'm just super happy-go-lucky, love being around people, and love bringing around good energy to whatever situation it is. And when I was playing professional basketball overseas, living in a time zone that was hours ahead of my parents or hours ahead of my friends, it takes a toll on you. You get some loneliness, and there's obviously nothing wrong with that. A lot of your teammates have their own lives, especially the local ones. So you don't really get to hang out with them that much outside of practice. Fortunately, a couple of my teams, we actually did hang out a lot. So shout out to my teammates. Again, I've talked to some of y'all. Thank you for reaching out, even though y'all are across the world and we haven't talked in years. But I appreciate y'all reaching out, because a lot of y'all were there for me and you would have never known it, because I'm struggling with a long distance relationship. I'm struggling with just being away from my family. And one thing that I think us as pros or former pros forget is when we're out in the world living our lives and chasing our dreams of playing professional basketball or professional volleyball or whatever it is, life here is also happening. So if you're still blessed enough to have family, they're getting older. If you're blessed enough to have pets, they're getting older. So a lot of that really just started to take a toll on me as I got later into my career. So years 4 and 5, I was kind of just all over the place. Luckily, again, had great people around. All my teammates, shout out my homie Shog, shout out my homie Keen, everybody, I appreciate y'all in the organization, because y'all were fantastic in just keeping me focused and making sure everything was good. But the main thing, going back to the mental health aspect of it, is I had thought I experienced depression. I had thought I had experienced anxiety because I would have an episode of it, or I would have a bad day or something like that. And you write it off. Anybody who knows me, I don't cry over spilled milk. It spills, I look at it, damn, that's unfortunate, but let me get the paper towels and clean it up. However, this was the first time where I had truly felt the weight of depression. I've never in my life not wanted to get out of bed. I've never in my life not wanted to move. Somebody who loves movement, who uses movement as therapy, as medicine, I did not want to do anything. I could not. It was a physical just boulder on my chest. And I'm pretty sure it had a lot to do with the medication that I was on, the surgery, looking down and seeing your external fixator, looking down and just seeing constant blood and trauma. It's tough. It's very tough. And just for me mentally, those first 2 weeks, I was in a very dark place. And again, not trying to sound too crazy, but I just didn't and couldn't wrap my head around not being able to get up and just go use the bathroom, get up, hug my parents, get up to go pee, get up to go number 2 on something that's not a commode that I have to be help transferred to. Somebody else has to clean me after I use the bathroom. So sorry for the details, but those types of things, especially being as independent as I was, they broke me, quite honestly. And this is where I go back to the first part, what I said is twofold. When I was talking to friends, y'all helped me through that type of stuff. So I am forever indebted to everybody out there who is reaching out to me, because I would not have made it. I would have broke mentally because I'm just not accustomed to this type of thing. So I've been very bad in the past, and this is in my past relationships, my past situationships, of being empathetic to people with those issues, because I just conceptually cannot understand. And that's something that now that I've gone through it, if I've ever been unempathetic or cold or harsh to anybody out there, even some of my friends who say I'm a little crash, I'm a little harsh, I don't really, I'm not really reading the room in terms of emotions, I completely apologize, because this entire experience has showed me that hundreds of millions of people go through this every single day. And I understand why it's crippling, because it crippled me. So if you're out there, if you're fighting those battles, my advice, at least from what I experienced, is lean on the people that are around you. And if you can't lean on anybody around you, search hashtags on social media. There's communities out there for everybody. There's people out there who are going through the same thing that you are. So for my friends that have reached out, even in the DMs, and talked about their bouts with depression, just talking to them and appreciating them opening up, that is honestly what keeps you going. And I think that it's very important for us to have those connections with people, because at the end of the day, you may not be going through it now, but it could be you in the future. So always be empathetic as much as you can, because sometimes you do have to just go through it to be able to understand what somebody's seeing and feeling. But just know that everybody's going through their own trials and tribulations. Always check on your people, even if everything's fine. I have always made it a point to check on people. Hey, what's going on? What's the word? How's everything going? How are you feeling? Not how are you doing? I tell my parents, my friends this all the time. When I ask you, how are you doing? I don't want good. That's too basic of an adjective. I need you to explain. I want you to talk to me. So encourage those conversations, because I think it really drives home the point of surface level care, is the way I explain it to you. For the people that you really care about, you gotta break through that barrier. And sometimes the loudest person, the most energetic person in the room, the one with all the smiles, they're going through something that is completely harder than anything that you can imagine. So be sympathetic to that, be empathetic to that, and just realize that we're all just fighting our own battles. And that first 2 weeks, honestly, I was recording videos and just kind of taking progress videos, and I didn't even recognize myself. There was nobody home. There was no light. There was no spark. And I'll share some of those behind the scenes of what I'm talking about, but I didn't recognize myself when I looked at those videos. So being 2 weeks out, I really climbed out of that. October 1st, I told myself I'm really going to wake up, break out of this, and luckily I did. So this next chapter of recovery is going to be a lot better, a lot more smiles, as you can see on my face. And next video is all about our rise to the top. So catch y'all soon.